Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever. My name is Willie Lawson of FightbackMedia.com. I trust that you are well today. Um, there's there's something I really want to talk about. Um, we live in a pretty volatile time, and I believe that we're a lot more volatile than we might be if we didn't have social media. Social media makes us be able to, to bang off a response on Facebook or 180 character tweet or a Facebook, or a IM me or IG meme, and be pretty cutting sometimes. I think just be, I don't know, just respond in a pretty uncivil manner, in a way that we would never do face to face. Partially because we are a little bit more civilized than that, and other partly because we don't want to get punched in the face. So it's just a shame that we are in this, this atmosphere where people believe that they can just online, just pretty much say whatever they want, and say it however they want to, whenever they feel like it. It's pretty uncivil. It's pretty uncivilized, and I think it's important that conservatives, as much as we can, sort of take the high ground here, um, avoid certain conversations, and I think that that's really super important. Um, my first case is something that struck me this morning, and we did a segment on it on the morning report this morning on Fightback Media. There's a young man that was an activist, and unfortunately, he's a teen activist who had called for the removal of police from public schools. Uh, the kid's name was Caleb Reed. Caleb Reed. Um, and it sort of captured the imagination of people in the area. I think Caleb, based on the situation where he lived, was incorrect. Caleb had a negative experience with the police and was calling for their removal from the Chicago public school system. A lot of areas now have police who are on site either for security or PR or whatever. Sadly, a couple of days ago, tragically, a couple of days ago, this 17-year-old student was found dead last Friday, shot in the head. It's terrible. He's 17 years old. 17 years old. You know, I found, I'm going to call them out. Actually, Gateway Pundit's one of my favorite people. Jim Holt and the people at Gateway Pundit are some of my favorite people. But the people who comment are not. Um, I I posted, this is tragic. Kid's so young. Anyone, and this is the purpose of what I'm talking about here, anyone happy about this terrible thing needs to examine themselves. Any joy or bemusement is terrible. And it makes you terrible. Not a conservative, not a patriot, just terrible. And someone actually downvoted that comment. Here's a comment that got upvoted. Since he was such an advocate for defunding / removing police, I don't think the police should spend resources investigating his death. Upvoted 421 times. And then there's a comment about blacks kill over 6,000 blacks per year. Black lives don't matter to blacks. Black politicians, the media, they largely ignore the killings. Do we just forget that a 17-year-old kid was murdered? Now, so many conservatives claim to be Christian, claim to stand for God and country. Really? But do you? Do you really? Do you really stand for God and country? If you can't find anything compassionate to say when the 17-year-old kid gets shot in the head and murdered. We don't know who murdered this kid at this point. It's incomprehensible. Think about the parents. It's incomprehensible that on the streets of one of our major cities, a kid that everybody knew would be found dead with a bullet hole in his head. Incomprehensible. And it's incomprehensible that people sit behind the safety of their keyboard, not finding any compassion for that, not being able to muster up the just the most basic condolences to the family. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, you're such an advocate for police removal. The police shouldn't investigate. Really? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with people? I guess that's my question today. What is wrong with people? What's happened? And this remark that got upvoted 421 times was from a woman. What is wrong with people? Now, you guys know that a number of days ago, um, Herman Cain passed away. Herman Cain had fought off stage 4 cancer, and he succumbed to complications from COVID-19, apparently. It was microseconds before people were saying if he hadn't been a MAGA Trump supporter, he would have been alive. If he'd have just worn a mask, and if he wasn't a COVID denier, and I mean, just anything to pile on during this time, to pile on to Trump. Reprehensible. I mean, I even got some of it from people that I know, people I like, people I care about, who just happen to think differently politically than I do. I can take that we're not going to agree on policy or politicians. Take that. But it was hurtful that through that would be that kind of vitriol, using the death of another human being, the tragic death of another human being, that you would politicize the death of another person. Folks, there needs to be a great deal of introspection. A great deal of introspection. Who are we? Who am I? I have a political stance. I do, and I will probably always have it. But if I cannot be a decent person in the process, what's it all for? Who's it all for? Introspection is truly needed. We need civility for these uncivil times. I'd love to hear your comments. Comment below. either on YouTube or on Facebook. Thank you ever so much. Good night.